Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Boys Town Tech Talk. My name is Gabby. I am your host, and I am joined here today with Dr. Steve Arcidiacano from the Boys Town, South Florida Behavioral Health Clinic. And we are live today talking about everything you need to know before getting your child a phone. So maybe you're on the cusp and have already been kind of thinking about getting that child a phone, or you might even be a few years out from your child wanting a phone or needing a phone. And either way, this is a great conversation for us to have because it will happen to every family at some point if it hasn't already. And Dr. Steve here is going to provide different tips and tools on everything you need to know. So if you're watching live, go ahead and leave a comment below. Let us know why you're tuning in, if you've gotten your child a phone or maybe not yet. And of course, as we go through our discussion, feel free to leave any questions below. And maybe if you're watching later tonight, you can still leave questions. And of course, please share this with another parent that might find it helpful. Dr. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Great to have you on. We love doing these tech talks with you. I think this is our third one now. We've done one on AI, we've done one on video games, if you haven't caught that yet. And we're going to keep doing them. So if there is a tech talk topic that you're wanting us to do, think about it during this live and let us know because we are going to keep building on these. So wonderful. Okay, so we're going to go through our discussion questions here. The first one, Dr. Steve, is the big one. How do you know when a child is ready for their first phone?
So I get asked this question a lot, like what age is usually the question? And the answer is that there's no right age. There's no exact number that's the right age. But the stats show up that your average child typically gets it between the ages of 11 and 13. And I would say not before age 12. And then there's this second tier, which is it necessary and are they ready for it? So is it necessary is kind of a question of, is it that I need to be able to communicate with them when they're going to extracurricular activities and needing to pick them up, or they're going on a big field trip or whatever it might be. So sometimes people want to get it for a practical purpose, and then they feel like they have to. And then the other question is, are they ready for it? And is it actually necessary, or is there another way for us to do that? Is a different question, but an important one. And sometimes I'll use a little heuristic, like let me just propose to you this. Would you let your kid go to the park unmonitored? Like, would you just say, like, here, go to the park on your own, and I'll see you in a couple hours? Like, are they trustworthy enough to do that? Are they responsible enough to do that? Would they meet you at the right spot at the right time? Like, are you comfortable with them being potentially interacting with people in public and confident that they would handle it appropriately? Those kinds of things. So that's just a little heuristic to give you an idea. If your answer is an immediate no, then they may not be ready yet.
Yeah, that's a good kind of gauge with the park analogy, for sure. And before giving a child their own phone, what expectations or boundaries should families talk about first?
I would say that the big recommendation that I give across screens, including phones, video games, TV, computers, all of those things, would be to create a media plan. And the media plan could be simple or it could be really detailed, depending on the family, depending on the situation. But you're going to want some set of expectations that are clear on the front end. A big mistake, one thing I do not recommend that you do, is just giving them the phone. Right. You're going to want to come up with some sort of set of rules or expectations about what the child needs to do to maintain the privilege of having the phone. I usually recommend thinking about a priority system. Like, what is the top priority? What is the most important thing? And for me, for example, that would be health and safety. So what does that mean? That means that if it's time for sleep, that's a health issue. And so you should be sleeping, not being on the phone. Or if it's time to eat, you shouldn't be multitasking with 3 screens while you're eating, things like that. Yeah. And then setting up some screen-free zones and some screen-free times. So one of the clearest ones is not having it in their room at night I do hear parents say, well, I don't think they're really using it. I am telling you right now, over and over and over again, when I'm talking with them, they're using it. At least sometimes they'll tell me, oh, I couldn't sleep, so I just got up and I scrolled on my phone. And I'm like, oh, okay. I wouldn't recommend that. But if they don't have the opportunity to do that, it just eliminates that option, especially again in the beginning when you're first allowing them that privilege.
Yeah, and it can totally be one of those things where parents might, peek in and check and say, oh, they're asleep, they're not on their phone. And then as soon as that door shuts, that gets pulled out under the covers and the light goes on,
Sure.
It's like when we were younger, we were always hiding books. Like I was reading my book in the cover, and now it's, phone with Instagram, TikTok, all those things. So
and kids are smart. They figure out how to do things. They figure out if you're like, oh, well, I shut off the Wi-Fi. I've told stories. There are kids that have told me that they connected to like the Dunkin' Donuts that's close enough, like their Wi-Fi, and kids are smart. They figure things out. So the simplest foolproof way, especially in the beginning, is just don't have the device in that room. Have it housed elsewhere, like plug it in the parents' room or something where it would just be really difficult for them to access it.
Yeah. And I think too, when we're talking about getting our child their phone, we're always thinking of our phones, right? Like I've got an iPhone, but what kind of phone do you recommend as a starter phone? It doesn't have to be the iPhone right away by any means, right?
Correct. Again, just simple thought. You would not want to give them all of the freedom and all of the access, wait for them to mess it up and then take it away. You'd want to start slow and grow up to the full privileges. There are some, I don't know the proper term, less smart phones. Yeah. Feels weird calling it a dumb phone. I don't know. But, phones that don't have access to the internet, few different options for that. What I've seen a lot of parents do that I don't recommend is they'll give like their hand-me-down. Like if they upgraded their phone, they'll get, oh, I've got the newest iPhone, you take the previous iteration. And again, I would not recommend that for a first one. There are ones that are created for this purpose nowadays. So one of them, I think somebody told me recently, is called Bark phone. And it comes with parental settings already ingrained in it. You get alerts if there's anything that's risky that the child's doing on there. And there's social media restrictions and all sorts of things. So I would say A is just get a phone that is the purpose of the phone, is to be a child's first phone. Or the other option is just take a long time in the beginning to make sure you have it all set the proper way. iPhones have a screen time app. Android phones, there's another one called Digital Wellbeing. And then there's also Google Family Link. So like on mine, my kids have Google Family Link for their tablets. And I can go on right now and it's already preset time limits. It's already preset like certain hours of the day. So even if they tried to go on their tablet at night, they wouldn't be able to. And in fact, I would get an alert if they tried. So there are tools available. I would start with the kid phone and then graduate to a very restricted smartphone. And then as they are demonstrating that they are responsible and trustworthy and meeting all of the boundaries that you've set, they could gradually earn more of the privileges that are within the phone.
You made me think when you were talking about screen time. What's your opinion on apps like Life 360 and Find My Friends, where we can be tracking our kids' location? What are your feelings on that?
I would say they're mostly helpful for parents. And I think in some ways it's one of the good things that can come from a child getting a phone is that sometimes it allows parents to feel more comfortable letting their child do something independently. And actually there's a trend in recent years where parents are much more concerned about safety, and the research doesn't necessarily back that up. Like they're more concerned about bad things happening, and they really don't as often as people think. So I think allowing the child to have a phone with something like Life 360 can give an opportunity to let them get a little bit more freedom in a way that the parent feels comfortable about because they have the apps installed. Now, the kids might protest, they might not like it, it might feel restrictive. And again, the theme of this whole conversation will be the same, which is, okay, we're going to start this way. And as you demonstrate that you are increasingly trustworthy, then I don't need to monitor it quite as much. And by the way, even with Life 360, all it takes is a couple of searches on Google or the AI, and they can figure out ways to work around things. And so that, you have to still, as the parent, be conscientious. You can't just presume that because you have these apps or that you have these restrictions on the phone, that they're completely adherent to it, that you should just trust it. So I like periodically checking for trustworthiness. If they say they're going one place, and you check the app, are they there? You don't need to sit there and monitor them the whole car ride to make sure that it's just right. But, periodically checking to make sure things seem as they should be.
Yeah, definitely. And also just teaching, even if we have those apps, hey, I want you to check in with me. When you get there, let me know that you got there safe. Or when you're about to leave and head home, send me a text so I know that you're coming home. When can I expect you?
Sometimes to the teen, and a parent could say this to their child too, I talk about how the less communicative they are, the more parents are going to do that. So if you get your first phone and your parent is blowing you up, hey, make sure you tell me this, and make sure when you get there, you're like, oh my gosh, back off. That's a sign that you're not communicating enough. So if the kid sends the text, hey, I just got to the, if they're going on a field trip, hey, we just got there, we're going into the museum, then the parent won't reach out because you've already communicated it. So if you want parents to back off, then you could be proactive and be more communicative, more reliable. If you say you're going somewhere, be there, those sorts of things. As you earn the trust, parents tend to give more freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Do you see in the clinic, parents who are feeling pressure because maybe they're, let's say, middle schooler, you said 12 was maybe around the age that a lot of kids will get phones. They might come to their parents and say, mom and dad, everyone else at school has a phone and they're all texting in a group chat and I don't have a phone and I feel that I'm not included because I don't have one. How can parents deal with that situation?
I hear that a lot. And by the way, the kids who are saying that are maybe sometimes they're 12, but I would say more often I'm hearing that from like an 8-year-old, who is like, they get to have their own phone. What I would say is this is a common thing across the board. So-and-so is allowed to watch R-rated movies. How come I'm not? And a typical response that I recommend for parents is just thinking about what your family values are and just communicating those consistently. So in one example, that might be, well, in our family, we earn things, or in our family, we need to make sure that we take care of these priorities first and then have those things. In their family, they might not have that same set of priorities. It might be more okay. Or maybe that child is meeting the expectations consistently. Maybe they're trustworthy and you haven't shown us that yet. But if you do, then we would also give you that freedom. So I think it's okay to say no. Parents are worried. And there are some positives that can come in the sense of staying more connected socially. But to me, it's more of a reflection of this combination between parent values of what they want to instill in their child and child showing that responsibility when they are given those opportunities. So long and short answer, I think on the parent side, to help the conversation, you might present it more of a positive, like not just like a, no, how dare you keep asking me that, but more like you'll get one. It's just first we need to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And that's more important than the age. As I was referencing, it's around 12 tends to be the age, but you could have a 10-year-old who is on top of all their stuff, very responsible, doesn't lose anything, emotionally savvy, just they could prove themselves to be trustworthy and use it appropriately, and it could be okay. And you might have a 15-year-old who is not showing that they're responsible at all, not taking care of homework and lying and sneaking and all those sorts of things. And that answer might be a no. So that's my main point about this, is that it really isn't about age. It's more about, are they ready for it? Is it necessary, and are they ready for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So then we talked a little bit about this, but in a little bit more detail, the segue between getting a phone and social media access.
Mm.
How can we kind of start that conversation with our child if they come to us and, maybe they have a phone that can have those apps and they're saying, Mom, I want an Instagram and a TikTok and a Snapchat. That can be a lot for a parent who maybe isn't super involved on those apps.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I would say that the social media would be like one of the final bosses. If this is like a video game metaphor, you start out on the easy level and it's really easy to jump on the Goombas' heads. And then at some point you wind up with this complicated boss fight that you have to overcome. And I would say with younger people taking on the responsibility of a phone, social media is a big bad boss. It's one that you should probably work up to. I didn't mention it before, but another thought about starting early is you could give them some other devices. You could give them a smartwatch. You could give them an old flip phone and see if they're able to take it with them everywhere and not lose it. You could do things that are slow introductions. You could unlock access to the camera first, and maybe that's all they could do. By the way, my kids have a little smartwatch, and it's a good opportunity to start teaching these boundaries early. And if there's a camera on it, making sure that they're using the camera appropriately. Are they taking pictures of people without their permission? All those sorts of things. So what I'm saying is start with the very minimal access and then teach them each step along the way. Okay, now they've got texting. So we might need to have conversation about how to interpret words without hearing the tone, and how to know when somebody's giving off a vibe like they're unhappy or that they don't want to talk anymore, or whatever those limits might be. Maybe access to the internet, what responsible internet use looks like, what are appropriate things to do on the internet, what are inappropriate things, what to do if you come across something like that. And then again, social media being like a final boss. There's some pretty solid research and actually even laws coming out that are restricting social media for younger people. I believe Nebraska has one coming out relatively soon, or coming into effect in maybe July. And things like requiring parent permission in order to get social media to start with, limits on younger people being able to have like the algorithmic, more addicting kind of things, because on social media you could just flip through forever. Yeah. So that would be my answer. Is social media has got to be aged up for sure. I would say around 16 is maybe a ballpark number. Again, it not being exactly yes or no, it depends on the kid. But if you were to ask me for a ballpark number, that's about where it would be. So we're talking between the first maybe around 12 to 16 to get the social media. If you can't tell, that would be quite the evolution to get there.
Yeah.
And they're going to be upset by that, by the way. Like they're not going to be happy, and they're going to say the same things that you said before. My friend has it, and this and this and this. And I would just give the same response, which is, hey, you know what? I get that. I get that you're upset your friend's able to be on it and you're missing out on the Snapchat streak or whatever it might be. When you're able to show me this, this, and this, and you're this age, then you'll be able to be right on there. And you could give them alternate options too, of like, for now you could do this, whatever it might be.
Even if it's, texting my friend instead of Snapchatting, that you're still in communication with them if you want to be.
Right. I get it though. Or there's some things that they could do that might be alternatives to, talk to them. Like some video games might have, chat where you could set it to only certain people, like friends only, and maybe they could talk to their friends on the chat while they're playing games together or something. It's not exactly social media, but it's starting to creep closer to that realm, right? Like there's other people involved and you're managing how you're coming off to other people online and those sorts of things.
Yeah. And how do we teach that? Because it's hard even as adults to be interpreting text tone and, they seem like they might be mad at me or whatever it may be. And when you're, young teenager and a tween, even younger than that, how can kids learn kind of how to interpret and how to, treat our friends well and speak appropriately over text?
It's a really tough question. I think some of it would be trying to find a better word than this, but the word that's coming to my head is tests, right?
Okay.
Like, hey, let me show you this message. What would you take from this? What do
Yeah.
you think this person's getting at? Hey, this person said fine with a period. What do you think that means? Or even, kind of playfully, like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm gonna show you 4 different, ways of saying I'm fine. And I want
Mm.
you to try to figure out, test them a little bit. Can you figure out which one is legitimately fine? Can you figure out which one is I'm not fine? How could you
Right.
tell? Or if you wanted to communicate that, how could you make sure that you communicate that? Do you need to have an emoji? Do you need to put it with you know, um, a different phrase that makes it more clear? Or you know, and practice with them a little bit, I think, is the answer, just like anything else. And then I don't like when parents are too invasive, but
Right.
I do think, especially in the beginning, again, if you're leveling up and you're saying, hey, I'm going to allow you to text, but I'm going to be straightforward with you in that I'm allowed to read your texts if I feel like I need to. And sometimes I'll do it just to help you, to make sure that you're still using it appropriately, and then you can continue to have the phone and eventually level up to other things that you want, like internet access and apps and things like that. So again, framing it of like, this is a good thing for you. If you're meeting the expectations, you can continue to get more freedom, right? You want to promote that. Not, you better not do bad things or bad things will happen. If you do the good things will happen. So periodically checking on some of the conversations, they could show you some, or if they're a little bit confused, like if someone's upset and they don't understand why, going through it together and being like, do you see how you said this? How would you feel if that came off to you? That's a good one too with kids. There's something about making it personal about them that they might come up with all sorts of excuses and rationales. But if you make it about a neutral person or like a hypothetical person or general population, they usually give you pretty reasonable answers. I'll tell you. Like if you
Right.
ask a kid, when should you get a phone? They might say right now. But if you said, when do you think is a good age for someone to get a phone? Then they'll start giving you more reasonable answers, right? They'll
Yeah.
start to say, oh, I don't know. When you show that you can like handle it. Okay. And what would not handling it look like? They'll give you the answers. They know. And you go, okay,
Mhm.
so it's the same thing for you. So you might start with that. If it was somebody else saying this to you, how would you take it? And suddenly things start to flip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great tip. We could probably apply that to a lot of stuff besides just the phones.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just like a social awareness experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what does it feel like when somebody does that to you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're doing that to them.
For sure. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
great. We just have a couple more questions here on our list for Dr. Steve. So if you have a question on getting your child a phone, make sure you leave it in the comments. And of course, check out the comments because we're linking lots of different resources like our family media plan and other things that we've talked about during this chat. How are phones affecting kids' mental health right now, both in helpful ways and concerning ways?
Yeah, that number I gave you of age 12 as like the minimum is partially because there's some research showing that under the age of 12, it's associated, like phone use, early phone access is associated with some poor outcomes like depression and disrupted sleep. And disrupted sleep is probably the most common thing that I see that causes some of these other challenges. And again, it's this disruption of priorities, right? It's not necessarily that like the phone isn't magically keeping them awake at night. It's they're not respecting the boundaries of this is time to sleep, right? That's really what's doing it. And then that might cause other issues, like they might be tired and irritable throughout the day, which might cause some problems socially, which might cause some emotional response or withdrawal from people. There's also this comfort. I've seen a lot of younger people using the phones as a primary coping strategy. So if they're stressed out, they open up their phones and start doing some things on it as a way of dealing with whatever stressful thing is going on. And then when they don't have it, then they're not sure what to do. So it might be very difficult for them to go to sleep because they've kind of avoided thinking about all these things throughout the day. And now that the phone's away at night, it all comes rushing back and they have a hard time handling that. So I would say disrupted sleep and depression. And then also with social anxiety specifically, there are some poor associations like social comparison Unfortunately, especially with girls, we've seen this. So seeing what others are doing and comparing yourself to them, I'm sure we've all experienced that. Most people don't post the uglier stuff online, the mistakes that they're making and the failures that they had and those sorts of things. They post the look where I am and look what I'm doing and look who I'm with and those sorts of things. And that can create some emotional turmoil of like, oh, all these people are at a party. How come I wasn't invited? And those sorts of things. So I would say that is the concerns more. And then the good stuff would be just staying connected and being able to keep conversations going with people socially. Again, some positive, some negative, but I know kids where that is like their most trusted group is almost predominantly online or almost exclusively online, where they feel the most open with them. They feel like they can really truly express themselves with the comfort of knowing that it's a little bit at a distance. So some people do find their support network in that way. And the other one I mentioned before, which is I think maybe more for parents, sometimes makes them feel more comfortable allowing their child to do more things independently. And that grows confidence. If the kid can handle more on their own, like that's such a good feeling. Like, oh man, I remember being a kid and I was in school and I earned this privilege where I was able to like go to the other classrooms and like hand out milks from the cafeteria. And I felt like such a cool kid. It really was almost nothing. But the fact that I didn't have a teacher with me and I was walking down the halls and I was like, oh, I've got like some, but it comes from trust, right? Like they trust those children to be able to handle that. And then when the kid is, then they grow that confidence. So same kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Are there signs that we should be cognizant of where a phone might be negatively impacting our child's mood, behavior, or relationships?
Yes. I would say one of the terms we use in the clinic is impairment of functioning. So if you think about basic elements of their lives, like are they sleeping? Are they performing enough with decent effort for academics? Are they connecting with others socially? Balancing out their lives with other activities. If it starts to impair one of the major categories, if you see them sleep deprived, if you see them withdrawing from family and friends, if you see them quitting an extracurricular activity because all they want to do is focus on that phone game or whatever it might be, those would definitely be red flags that you'd want to start to revise your media plan. If you haven't done one, then you definitely want to do it then. And again, it's not about, you're a bad kid or anything like that. It's like, hey, this is new for you. Let's figure out how to do this successfully. Like, I want you to be able to have your phone. I just need to make sure that you're meeting all the priorities correctly. So, parents might want to have periodic check-ins, or again, I don't like invading privacy for no apparent reason. But if you're starting to see some of those signs, then it might be worthy, or like sneakiness and things like that too, just violations of the boundaries. I would say once you make that media plan, it's a good idea to have check-ins scheduled. And you might want to check in, let's say, between 2 and 4 weeks, like between every couple of weeks to a month. And that's ideally a good thing because hopefully they're respecting the boundaries. And you could talk about, are you ready for some additional freedom? Maybe I'll let you have it in the morning if you meet all of your, as soon as you're done with all your morning routine items or something like that, right? Like they might be excited to do a review because it could give them the opportunity to get more freedom. Or you do a review and you say, hey, we saw there were like 4 zeros for homeworks, which has us worried. It indicates that you're not respecting the priorities.
And then maybe dial it back from there.
Especially changes. Yeah. Especially changes like drops. Like if it's different now that you've introduced the phone, that's an indication that the phone might have something to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. And, so much of this, I love the media check-ins. I love so much of what we talked about. It comes down to modeling, right? So how can we as caregivers model healthy phone habits?
Oh my gosh. I had a moment where I felt humbled. I was playing a game with my kids and it was a fun game. I recommend it for people. We swapped roles for the bedtime routine. So I was the kid, and their objective was to get me to get ready for bed. And so I
Yeah.
was doing all the things that kids do, and, you know, saying, okay, I'm going to go brush my teeth, and then wandering like the wrong direction. And I was doing all sorts of goofy things. They loved it. But what I didn't expect is when they were wanting to act like me, do you know what they wanted immediately? Can I have your phone? And I was humbled for a second. I was like, oh, as soon as they thought about being a parent, they thought about having the phone.
I get
And
my
that was a little moment where I was like, oh, so they're associating me with having my phone in my hand, even during the nighttime routine. And I would say that is what you're talking about, is if you want them to be respecting all these boundaries and limits and demonstrating these priorities, then you might want to do it also. Phone in the room at night is a good example. Like, really, basically nobody needs that, right? And I know there are plenty of adults, I'm sure, that are guilty of doing that. If your kid sees you on the phone in your bed, they're going to say, how come I'm not allowed to do that and you are? And you could say, because I'm a grown up, but you're not really doing a great job of demonstrating that that's a priority. I would say bedtime and meal times, those are the clearest examples. In driving, so bedtime, mealtime, driving, those three should just be no question. Like, while we're eating, especially if you're eating together as a family, the parents need to respect those limits and demonstrate those for the kids so that they can see what it looks like. And if you have kids, they're little lawyers. They will call out hypocrisy wherever they can find it. And it's good for you anyway, right? It's good for you to be focusing on your kids at the mealtime. It's good for you to be getting good sleep. And I know even myself, like I said, I was humbled, and I talk about this stuff all the time. And I was like, oh no, I asked them, I was like, do you see me on there? And they were like, only sometimes. And I was like, okay, I felt a little better, but I think they just wanted to be able to go on the phone, actually, more than anything. They were
I
excited.
want role play dad, but I want the phone. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, I don't go on YouTube. What are you doing? Like, they were leveraging it a little bit, but
kids. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it's hard too. I mean, just having the phone free zones, because I feel like we don't even catch ourselves like how often we just reach for it. If it's right there, it's almost like second nature. And even like my friends and I were talking about, we're like, when did we get to a point where we need to bring our phones into the bathroom with us? Like, why am I bringing my phone in with me? That's crazy.
I agree. If you find yourself needing to check it while you're driving, especially things that are like unnecessary, something's wrong. Or I've discovered myself on occasion, like, I'll close Instagram or whatever it might be, and without even meaning to, I'll just tap it and open it again. And I'm like, I literally just closed this. But those are little signs that you might need to demonstrate those boundaries yourself. I was going to tell one more thing, which is that if there are people watching this, parents, and you haven't done this in a while, I would recommend you pull out your phone, like right now, and pull out whatever app you have that might monitor your usage. So again, for Android, it's called Digital Wellbeing. For iPhone, I think it's called Screen Time. And just open it up and take a look. And I think you'll be surprised. A lot of people, even me, like, I'm looking at myself. So if you would have asked me to guess how many hours I'm on my phone, I don't know what I would have said, but I probably wouldn't have said 4.5 hours a day. Like, it doesn't feel like 4.5 hours. I'm at work all day, and like, I don't know, but there it is. It's right there. So, check your own screen time too, and see if you can't maybe join them a little bit when you're implementing, like I said, especially some of the major ones like screen-free zones, screen-free times. Try to respect those as much as you can as well.
Definitely. So one more last wrap-up question, Dr. Steve. If a parent is watching today and they still are feeling a little bit unsure about whether their child is ready for a phone, what is one practical step they can take this week to start the conversation in a proactive way?
I have 1.5 steps. So one step would be the conversations we were talking about, and not about them, just in general. Like, open up a conversation of, hey, what do you think about kids getting their first phone? Yeah. Do other kids have them? Yeah. Do you think that's a good idea? What are the good things that come from it? Well, what are the worries? How would you know if a kid had a problem? Like, how would you know if it was an issue? And just open up some of those hypotheticals. Or what would you do if you were using a phone and this happened? What would you do? Or what is the right thing to do? And, do you think that you would do that? No? Okay. What if other kids were doing it? Right? Those kind of conversations, and just see how they respond. And then the half part would be giving them little responsibilities that, whether you tell them or not, would kind of be tests to see whether or not they can handle it. If you get them a cheap, $20 smartwatch, can they keep track of it? Can they keep it, without losing it? Are they looking at the smartwatch, playing a game on it while talking to you? Like those little things. So you talk about what it would be like. Can you keep those boundaries? And then give them little opportunities to demonstrate that trust. And that is a good starting point. And again, if there are massive violations, if their grades are not where they're supposed to be, if they're disrespectful, if they aren't responsible with taking care of their stuff, all of those things would be signs of nope, they're not ready yet. And again, you could have that conversation with them of like, hey, I tried to give you an opportunity to show me that you could handle this. I didn't see it yet. So if you want to get another opportunity, we could try it again next month or whatever it might be.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all of this helpful information. We covered so many things, from when to get your child a phone, to what kind of phone, to if they have the phone, what levels of access, and lots of helpful stuff in this video. So like I said in the beginning, make sure you like it, and please share it with another parent who might find it helpful, because this is definitely a topic that lots of people have been searching for, and we are happy to have Dr. Steve on here as our expert. Thank you so much for joining us today, and tune in for our next Tech Talk. Follow Boys Town Parenting on Facebook and Boys Town on YouTube. We'll be sharing lots of things in the comment section for you to reference. And if you have a topic that you want Dr. Steve to talk about, let us know. We're happy to cover it. Thanks, Dr. Steve.
Thank you for having me. Always a good time.
Bye, everyone.